everybody. I'm Brian Enton in for Chris Cuomo tonight. It is Friday night. We are live. Thank you so much for joining us on NewsNation. I just got back today from Western North Carolina. What an eye-opener it was. I mean, you don't see it on the other networks. It's really not getting the coverage it deserves. But I'm so glad that we went down there and that we were able to show you how people are still really suffering after Hurricane Helene. I could not believe it. It is so much worse than I expected. In some areas, it looks like the storm just hit. The people, they feel forgotten there. They feel ignored. There are many people still living in tents. There is no running water. There is no drinking water in Asheville, a big city. They still don't have drinking water. Where is the government assistance? It is a story that we promised to stay on top of, and we will. And I will have more later on the show, and I've learned a lot more since my stories yesterday. So that's coming up. But first, the election. We are all still processing the surprising impact young voters. Election, by the way, was only not even 2 weeks ago. Can you believe it? It's only been like a week and a half since the election. But the young voters, the Gen Zers and the millennials, they had a big part in choosing our next president. Where Biden had a 24-point advantage in 2020 with 18 to 29-year-olds, Harris received about half of that, beating Trump only by small numbers with the generation that everyone believed, everyone was saying it ahead of time, that they were going to go overwhelmingly liberal. So why is it that so many young people moved to the right? I want to ask someone who has received a lot of online scrutiny for supporting President Trump, but says she is glad that she did. 27-year-old Savannah Chrisley, the daughter of Todd and Julie Chrisley of the famed hit reality show Chrisley Knows Best. Her parents are both serving jail sentences on charges of federal fraud. Savannah Chrisley has been at Mar-a-Lago for the past few days, and she joins me now live from the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago. Hey, Savannah, you look very nice tonight. It's good to see you. You know, I was thinking about this before the show. When I first met you, you were not involved in politics at all. You never really talked about politics. And here you are at Mar-a-Lago. You were very vocal leading up to the election in your support for Trump. How does it feel? I mean, are you getting a lot of love? Are you getting a lot of hate? Are you getting a bit of both?
It's very liberating to actually be able to stand up for what you believe in, especially not only as a woman, but a young woman in today's day and age. And to be able to say that I am a strong, intelligent woman that supports Trump is one of the greatest feelings in the world. I get a lot of hate, but I also get a lot of love. And I like to say that the hateful ones can see their way out while all the loving ones see their way in.
Were you nervous about it at all, though? Because I was scrolling through your Instagram, and yeah, you get a lot of love, but there's still a lot of hate on there, and you have a lot of fans from the TV show.
Yes, I lost a lot of money the day I came out for President Trump, but with both my parents being in federal prison, I knew I had to look at two children, and was I willing to sell myself to the devil? I wasn't. I couldn't do it anymore. The world of Hollywood is dangerous. And I knew that, hey, I may lose this money, but I know that God's going to provide for me. And I had to come out about what I believed in because our country was in such a need for President Trump to be back in office. And I couldn't stay silent. With over this month alone, I had 30 million impressions just on Instagram. So I knew I had to use my voice.
How much money have you lost? You mentioned losing money.
You know, I've lost a good bit. I've definitely lost six figures for sure, just by supporting the president. But it's funny because I feel like these companies are all starting to come back around, and they're starting to come back around because they know that President Trump doesn't mess around. And I don't like to deal with the hypocrisy of these companies that want to support him only when he's on the up. I'm going to support him when he's down low and when he's up high.
What is it about Trump, Savannah, that you think so many people in your generation switched over, longtime liberals, and are now supporting him?
I think people who have been such longtime liberals, they're tired of the lies. They're tired of people looking them in the face and just telling them what they want to hear. Now we have a president who's saying, hey, our country has gone to hell. It's not in the place it needs to be. Gas prices are high. Grocery carts are the most expensive car you drive. You've got a president who's getting in a garbage truck. That resonates with Gen Z. Gen Z loves to see those moments, and President Trump mastered the Instagrammable moments that went viral for Gen Z to pick up on.
Do you think it's the economy, Savannah, that for the most part has attracted Gen Z? The issues with the economy, are they feeling it?
Yes, without a doubt. I know the economy is rough. It has been, I know for me alone, raising 2 children, when you are going to a grocery store and you have to pay 2 times the price, especially for women. I'm sorry, but for women, we are underpaid in a lot of jobs. And we are also sometimes the primary caregivers. It is extremely difficult. And for Gen Z, they're getting out of the house. They're going off to college. They're seeing how expensive things are for the first time, and they can't take it. It's not an attainable lifestyle. It's not the American dream.
You've been fighting for your parents for a long time, Savannah, to get them out of prison. You say they're innocent. You've talked about the conditions. Do you think Trump is going to pardon your parents?
I have not asked for that. A lot of people give me a lot of flack on social media of the only reason you're supporting President Trump is because you're doing your work for a pardon. And that is not the case. I've become the senior fellow, advisor for criminal justice reform for CPAC for that reason, because I want to make a difference. People can't hold me accountable for what I didn't know. And now I expect people to hold me accountable for what I do know and what I don't do something about. And I'm not looking for a pardon. I'm looking to do the right thing, no matter how tough it gets.
So you're at Mar-a-Lago right now. I mean, we saw the party last night. Trump gave his big speech. There's another big CPAC event there tonight. I mean, what's the vibe like? Have you seen Elon Musk? I mean, who have you been bumping into?
Gosh, today I got to see Vivek. He's absolutely amazing. I truly do believe we will see Vivek as a president in our lifetime, and I cannot wait for that moment. I also got to talk to Steve Bannon today about his experience within the prison system, and Steve Bannon is what has given me the courage, he and his daughter Maureen, to continue to speak out. You name it, we've seen it. We've seen President Trump multiple times today. The whole crew is here, and it's such a lively place and experience, and everyone on his team, you will never meet someone that doesn't welcome you with open arms.
Well, it's good to see you tonight, Savannah. Thanks for stepping aside at Mar-a-Lago tonight to speak with us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to bring in the other side now when it comes to the Gen Z vote. We've got Gen Z Democratic influencer and reporter Adam Mockler and a former Democratic campaign operative, Evan Barker. Thank you both for being with us. Adam, I mean, I was just thinking before the show, I mean, it's only been a week and a half since the election. A lot of people can't believe it's only been a week and a half, but, has it set in, Adam, that Trump won among you all? And have you started to really process what may have gone wrong, especially when it comes to Gen Zers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it set in, and I think everybody has their favorite explanation as to why Trump won, but I think it's really simple. Kamala Harris lost for the same reason that Trump lost back in 2020, and that's people voting against the status quo. People aren't happy with prices, people aren't happy with the incumbent administration, and you can see incumbents across the globe losing. So I honestly don't think this was some massive realignment of Gen Z that we can't get them back to the left. I think it's just the economy. Across the globe, people are not happy.
Evan, you're one of the people who left the Democrats and voted for Trump. What pushed you over?
Yeah, so exactly what Savannah was just saying earlier in the segment. I think that Kamala Harris wasn't really addressing the economic needs of people in this country. We've seen inflation at an all-time high. She did present some economic ideas like implementing small business loans and stuff like that. But Donald Trump was out there every single day talking directly to the voters, giving real policy proposals like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, things that would infuse a real change directly into their lives right now. And so I think he ran on a campaign of economic populism, and she did not. And that's ultimately the main reason why the Democrats did not win this election. I think another thing that Adam didn't mention is that among Gen Z especially, all of these proxy wars that the Biden administration has promoted throughout the world are also deeply, deeply unpopular, you know? And so I think that especially when looking at Gen Z, they're pretty anti-war, you know, they're more in tune to these things than maybe previous generations were, just because of things like social media. And, you know, I think that it was a combination of the economy, it was a combination of foreign policy, and it was also the fact that Kamala Harris was not authentic. You know, Donald Trump was out there making politically incorrect jokes. You know, Gen Zers want to laugh again, right? We don't want to be all uptight and like we're speaking to an HR, you know, corporate executive person. And that's exactly how she came across. And so I think it was a combination of all those.
Yeah, it's a good point. You know, I think a lot of people were waiting for like an almost far left meltdown over the last week. And a lot of people have been quiet, but there have been some very strange outbursts. The most recent I want to read you, it's from Rachel Zegler, who is Disney's newest Snow White. She was in the Hunger Games. Everybody knows her. She posted really an election rant on Instagram. Look at this. She said, this was on November 6th. I find myself speechless in the midst of this. There is a deep sickness in this country that is shown in the sheer amount of people who showed up for this man who threatens our democracy. Get the F off Elon's app, by the way. The F are you doing? May Trump supporters and Trump voters and Trump himself never know peace. I mean, Adam, you read this. This is obviously a Gen Zer, a celebrity. Come on, I mean, may they never know peace? What do you make of it, Adam?
I think that it's funny you said you were expecting a far left meltdown and you quoted some 22-year-old actress from Hollywood, but you refused to admit or you refused to acknowledge that the former president, the president-elect, refused to concede the last election. He hasn't conceded to this day. After that election, he made up lies about widespread election fraud, and people stormed the Capitol. So the idea that the far left is melting down because some 22-year-old actress said some cringy, corny thing on Instagram is totally absurd. You're ignoring Donald Trump's insane apocalyptic rhetoric, but I do want to respond to what Evan said. Evan said something to the effect of Donald Trump ran on actual economic policies. Yeah, all of his policies regarding the economy, beyond just the rhetoric about no tax on tips, his main economic proposal is a 20% blanket tariff on all imports in the United States. If you think prices went up over the past 4 years, wait until that happens. You also said Gen Z voted due to all the wars across the globe, the proxy wars. I mean, foreign policy was on the last concern of Gen Zers, and most Gen Zers are probably pro-Ukraine. That's not a proxy war. That's us defending their sovereignty.
Yeah, and let me just be clear, Adam. I mean, I would have expected a far-right meltdown, too, if Harris won. So it wasn't like I was just targeting the left. But I did expect more of, you know, my super liberal friends to, I mean, they've been a little bit more quiet than I expected. That's just the point I was trying to make. Evan, there's something else interesting happening on TikTok, which I've noticed popping up. There's this thing called the 4B movement. I don't know if you've heard of it, Evan. It's this movement for women. No sex, no dating, no marriage, no children, essentially just hating men, blaming the man. Apparently it started back in South Korea several years ago, and now it's popping up here since the election. What do you make of that, Evan? Have you seen it?
I've heard a little bit about this. I'm obviously not one of those women. I want to continue enjoying my life and having a good time. But, you know, I've heard about this. I'm not sure how effective it'll be. I think a more effective strategy would probably just be for women to organize in the states that still currently have abortion bans. And I do want to say one more thing, Adam. If those tariffs are really going to raise prices, why has Biden kept them? Okay. And also the reason why Donald Trump overwhelmingly won the working class vote this election, and I mean overwhelmingly won it. If you look at 2008, Barack Obama won the working class vote by 66%. This election, Kamala Harris only did so by 48%. It's because those tariffs are going to keep American jobs in America. And that's why they're popular, and that's why he overwhelmingly won.
You're referring to very
Adam,
specific tariffs that Donald... Sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Adam. Yeah, you respond to her.
I was going to say, you're referring to very specific tariffs that Donald Trump enacted in his first term that Biden kept. Trump's new plan is 20% blanket tariffs. It's way different than what happened last time, and prices would increase. But yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, and we'll see if, that was the plan. We'll see if he ends up actually doing that. I'm curious, though, Adam, who do you think is the rising star in the Democratic Party now? I mean, is there a couple of people that you're eyeing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I do think there is somewhat of a vacuum of leadership. I mean, every time a party takes a loss, of course, they pivot. They think about what went wrong, unless you're Republicans in 2020. You just run the same guy again. But yeah, I think right now, as far as national candidates next election, we don't know. Remember, in 2004, nobody expected an Obama landslide in 2008. So, Gavin Newsom is articulate. I don't think he would be a good candidate on the national stage. AOC's been posting a lot on Instagram, but she's not ready to run. So there is some leaders that are emerging, but I don't think we're ready to talk about 2028 yet. But yeah, definitely some leaders emerging.
Yeah, it hasn't even been 2 weeks yet, so we got time. All right, Adam Mockler, Evan Barker, appreciate you both coming on Friday night. I hope you both have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, still to come tonight, the trial that the whole country has been waiting for. This was awful. The case against the undocumented immigrant accused of brutally murdering Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. It began today, and it already got emotions running high. We have a reporter on the scene. He's there now. He's going to take us inside some of the shocking twists and turns that already happened today. That's coming up next. Murder that rocked the country and brought crime and illegal immigration to the forefront. It was day one of the trial of undocumented Venezuelan immigrant Jose Ibarra, who is charged with murder and aggravated assault with intent to rape after Laken Riley was brutally killed 9 months ago when the 22-year-old nursing student was running on the University of Georgia campus. Just a terrible story. I remember when that happened. Today, opening statements were presented. He waived his right to a jury trial, so the judge will be the one to decide his fate. No jury. Let's listen to Sheila Ross, who made a powerful case for the prosecution.
On February 22nd, Jose Ibarra put on a black hat, a hoodie-style jacket, and some black kitchen-style disposable gloves. And he went hunting for females on the University of Georgia's campus. And when Laken Riley refused to be his rape victim, he bashed her skull in with a rock repeatedly. Laken fought. She fought for her life. She fought for her dignity. And in that fight, she caused this defendant to leave forensic evidence behind.
It's just awful. NewsNation national correspondent Alex Capriello is live outside the courthouse tonight in Georgia. He's been there all day. He's got the latest for us, Alex. I mean, the details are just terrible. What were the big highlights today of day one?
Yeah, Brian, as you know, I travel around the country for NewsNation covering these criminal trials. I'm not sure I've ever been to one that's been as emotional, as painful as something like this, where we had details coming in one after the other, which felt new, interesting, and hurtful to the family of Laken Riley. You could see that emotional really visible on their faces. At times, they had to excuse themselves from the courtroom just because the images and the videos that they were watching of their daughter, Laken Riley, the 22-year-old nursing student who lived here in Athens, Georgia, was just too much to bear. We saw autopsy photos. We saw crime scene photographs as well. We heard from the roommates of Laken Riley, one of the first people that were on the scene, the ones that actually found Laken Riley's AirPod near the trail where she was abducted and ultimately killed. That was really the turning point for this investigation, which really got it going. Those roommates were the ones who actually called 911, got the police involved, and shortly after that, Laken Riley's body was found. But as that prosecutor really just outlined, it really was all about the evidence that they were able to collect over the last 9 months, which they say overwhelmingly points the finger at the defendant defendant, Jose Ibarra. Most notably, it was like her cell phone that was found near the crime scene. Prosecutors say that Jose Ibarra's fingerprint was found on it. It was bloody clothes that were actually ditched into a dumpster. Surveillance video was pulled up from various neighbors' cameras that they had, which police say shows Jose Ibarra actually taking it and throwing it away in the dumpster. And obviously, this is a mountain of evidence that the defense is going to have to overcome if they want to try to find innocence for their client. Perhaps, though, the most powerful moment, though, was the actual body camera footage that the responding police officer had in the moments that he found Laken Riley's body. Keep in mind, we're about to show you a clip. It was too graphic, obviously, to show for the people on TV. The people inside the courtroom were able to see this body camera footage, but for the rest of us, we had to resort to audio of that body camera footage. But actually, that audio may be enough because you really can understand the moment of gravity when that police officer actually finds Laken Riley's body. Take a listen.
Found it. Ma'am. Oh. I need EMS immediately to the location where the phone pings. Ma'am. She's down, she's not breathing.
All right, Alex. Yeah, it's terrible. And I'm glad you brought up, the fact that her parents have to be in there listening to all of this and all these details. Alex, thank you so much. We'll get back with you next week. I want to bring in defense attorney Randy Zellin and former prosecutor Randolph Rice, the family attorney for Rachel Morin, another case that has made headlines another awful case. She was killed by an undocumented immigrant. Thank you both for being here. Randy, I want to start with you. I found it very interesting, no jury. It's a murder trial with just a judge, which I didn't realize that was a thing. I thought for something as serious as murder, you always had a jury.
No, it is particularly at a state level. It is the defendant's option. And Alex just laid out precisely why the defense waived a jury. Imagine subjecting a jury to the emotional impact, to the gravity, the gruesomeness. A judge is professionally trained to leave sympathy at the door. A jury is not. And I know my colleagues will say, I'll take my chances with 12 in the hope that one holds out. But in a case like this, with the emotions and just all of the impact, it was a very wise move to opt to go for just a judge.
But you disagree, Randolph, right? You think you would have gone for the jury.
Yeah, no, look, I think Randy makes some great points, but I also think he makes a point in there that there's the possibility that with 12 jurors, you may get one holdout because they can find that reasonable doubt, where a judge is just one person. And the judge doesn't get distracted by, the theatrics of a defense attorney or a prosecutor. He's just focused on balls and strikes. But when you have that jury, oftentimes, this is an analogy you could make, something shiny may distract them, and therefore they may lose focus of what's really important and the facts in the case, and ultimately they may hang or they may come back and say, we just don't have enough evidence to find him guilty.
Do you see a lot of similarities, Randolph, with the Morin case?
There are obviously you've got two women, Rachel Morin and Laken Riley, out for a jog. You've got, obviously, both suspects are illegal immigrants. There are a lot of similarities. I also feel the pain for the family of Laken Riley because I would bet you, Ron, they have not seen these photos. Just like in our case, the prosecutor is not releasing any photographs. The day that they have to go to trial and see those pictures, it's going to crush the Morin family like I saw it crush the Laken Riley family today.
Okay, I want to play a little bit of the defense's opening statement, and then I want to get your reaction. Take a listen.
The evidence that Jose Ibarra killed Laken Riley is circumstantial. The evidence that anyone had any intent or certainly committed any sexual assault is speculation.
Randy, what do you think about the defense saying that all the evidence is circumstantial? I mean, you heard in Alex's report, he's talking about fingerprints, he's talking about surveillance video. What does he mean by it's all circumstantial?
Here's problem number one, and let me answer the question. Circumstantial evidence. The difference between direct evidence and circumstantial evidence, as every judge explains to every jury, is simply this. Right now, I'm on your show, but I can also see my window. I look out my window and I see that it's raining out. That is direct evidence that it's raining. I see it. Conversely, let's say in my vantage point, I can't see a window. I don't know what's doing outside. My wife walks in. She's soaking wet, wearing a coat with a wet umbrella that she shakes out, hopefully in the hallway. I didn't see that it's raining outside, but the evidence, all logical inferences point to the fact that it's raining outside. That is circumstantial evidence. The problem with the defense here, it may be one thing to try to get over on the jury and make them feel as if there's a difference between direct evidence and circumstantial evidence, but there's not. They hold the same weight. There is no point telling a judge that the case is strictly circumstantial. The judge should go, okay, great. Circumstantial evidence is as powerful as direct evidence.
Randolph, what do you make of the fact that the death penalty is not on the table? Because I think a lot of people watching would think this, if there's a death penalty case, this is it, but it's not on the table. How did that happen?
Yeah, this one baffles me. I don't understand why they don't have the death penalty. They've only got life without parole as the maximum penalty. My guess is, and certainly we weren't in the room with the prosecutors, is that somehow they tried to use that as a bargaining tool or force to get him to take a plea. They said, hey, look, we'll take it off the table permanently if he takes this plea. And ultimately, he didn't take the plea, which we know he's at trial, obviously, today. But maybe they honored that. My only guess, that would be the reason. So that's one explanation, but certainly we're not in the back rooms listening to what the prosecutors are making decisions about.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like the biggest win of all for the defense. I mean, no death penalty no matter what happens, which is, I think, shocks a lot of people. Randolph Rice, Randy Zellin, thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, still to come, too often the news media arrives on the scene of a disaster for the big headline and forgets the people who are left behind. Well, we have made a pledge at NewsNation to stay on those stories. And 2 months ago, Hurricane Helene ripped through the South, wreaking havoc and devastation. And there's still so many victims that have been left homeless. I went down there. I just got back today. So much suffering, saw it with my own eyes. We're not going to let it go. We've got more of the stories tonight, and we've got a man who is helping in a way that no one else is. That's coming up next. All right, so we made a promise at NewsNation not to forget about stories just because they are no longer front page news. You see Chris living up to that promise all the time. Well, it's been nearly 2 months since Hurricane Helene devastated many parts of the country, leaving thousands homeless and desperately in need of assistance. But after recent reports that Helene victims had lost their homes, were still living in tents without power, without running water, getting no help from the government, we decided to go down to North Carolina to shed light on what is really happening there. Take a look.
Outskirts of Asheville, it's hard to decide where to even begin. There's just so much hurricane damage, literally everywhere you look. I got a message on X from a woman named Sarah. I want to show you. It says, "Hi, I'm in Swananoa, North Carolina, one of the hardest hit towns. We lost our home due to the hurricane. We're getting barely any help."
Nice to meet you.
I met Sarah outside the trailer she's living in with her husband, 2 kids, 2 cats, and 2 dogs. Like almost everyone here, their home was destroyed and condemned, and they also lost their cars and their jobs.
Everybody that I've talked to says they're getting no help.
Their trailer was donated by a volunteer, not FEMA, and they have to pay for their own porta potty.
I had to rent this so that we would even be able to use the bathroom.
So you have to pay for that yourself?
Yes. Yeah, it's $130 a month to rent one. We already have it so rough, and to not be able to get the financial and, help that we need it's really awful.
Some just down the road have it even more awful, living in tents and small RVs with no power as winter approaches and temperatures now dip into the 30s.
There's times we don't get fresh meat because there's no way to keep it cold. Because you got to choose between heating the house with a generator, especially the ones who have kids, and keeping the food cold.
Wintertime's coming. These folks cannot be forgot about. Just because you don't see this on TV, it don't just go away. This is not going to go away for a long time. We got to get those folks out of those tents and in those FEMA campers. How's it going to happen?
FEMA's not connecting with the county's not connecting with the state, and you got this big rat race.
Volunteers like combat veteran Robbie Ammons say housing is the biggest issue, and red tape. Families left in tents and RVs because of the permitting process, he says.
Next week, temperatures are going to start getting in the 30s at night. We're afraid of more hypothermia, folks that are living in the mountains, and there's probably going to be more bodies laying around if we don't start getting these people in some level of temporary housing.
There really is so much sadness and devastation. There's one man there, though, who's been a real hero. You see him there helping to find shelter for families. He's social media influencer Sean Hendricks. He's best known as expert survival dad on the popular YouTube channel Mr. Beast, which has more than 330 million subscribers. And Sean joins me now. Sean, thank you for being with us. Everybody down there was telling me I had to talk to you. You're the guy who's going out and actually helping people and bringing them trailers. It's getting cold. Temperatures are now in the 30s at night with these people in tents. What's the holdup? Like, why aren't they getting the help? What have you found?
I mean, I wish I had an answer for that because then we could fix it. There's no good reason. I mean, FEMA came out yesterday and said they've delivered exactly one manufactured house with 142 more approved. It's been 5 or 6 weeks. I don't understand with that kind of budget how they don't have all 142 deployed. I think, like you said with your interview with the other guy, it's just everybody's running around in circles, talking about rules and regulations and zoning and who owns this land and who owns that land. Who cares? Get them in houses, get them warm, and we'll figure that out later. But it seems like it's just thick with bureaucracy and it's slowing it down.
Yeah, I mean, these are mountain people. This isn't like a city. People live on their great-grandpa's land, and they don't know where the deed is, and FEMA wants to see it, and that's not really how it works there. There was a lot of intrigue, Sean, when I was there. People were intrigued by this FEMA compound off the highway, this big compound. There's armed guards outside. Take a look at this. A lot of the locals I've spoken to are particularly upset about a FEMA compound they say is much nicer than the donated trailers that they are staying in. It's hard to see, but this right here, I'm going to slow down, is the entrance to the compound. There's a lot of security. The public can't go in. We drove up onto a hill behind the compound for a better view, and you see how massive it is. A sea of government trailers. It's so organized and secure. So different from how the people we met are living here. So we weren't really sure what it was. We got a statement today from FEMA, Sean, that said essentially it's a temporary responder village so that staff has a place to live so that they can put the survivors of the hurricane in hotels because they say they don't want to take up the hotel rooms with the staff. That's essentially what the statement says. What do you make of this compound? I mean, again, people are very interested in it there because they don't see a lot of action there.
Yeah, I mean, I stood on that exact same hill and I watched for hours and there's just not much activity down there. I'm not saying that's not what they use it for, but it's being vastly underutilized. And the simple thing is if they can build that huge camp, why can't they get 143 pre-approved manufactured homes out? Like when they were building this, they could have been doing something else. And also, too, I just haven't seen the FEMA workers up in the mountains. It's basically paperwork, and everything's getting denied anyway. So what's the point? You've got all these people, this huge camp, and you've put one manufactured home. You've ended homelessness for one family, and the citizens have done it over and over and over again. That's just inexcusable.
Yeah, and you look at the difference between their compound, which it just looked so secure and orderly, and then the way that the people that we saw are having to live and haven't been able to get any kind of RV or a real shelter. Is permitting an issue? Because some people told me, look, we want to build a new structure on our land, but they won't let us. And it's getting cold, and we have to stay in the tent. They won't let us build.
Yeah, so the permitting's tough because a lot of this stuff, like you said, it's one family's land. I got 95 acres up in the mountains, and they don't spend $5 or $6 grand to resurvey off pieces, and the bureaucracy loves everything super organized, very, by the books. And when you don't have a deed, they won't put anything on a piece of land without a deed. And I understand fundamentally why they say that, but again, put a house down. We'll figure it out later. People need a place to live. We'll worry about the rules later. And I think even fundamentally, I don't even understand why we gave the government the power in the first place to tell us what kind of house we can live on our land in. It's got to be this many square feet or, has to have this type. It's not your business. It's my private property. I want to live in the house I want to live in. And now they're trying to force, these tiny homes don't meet code. Who cares? They got a heater and a bed and a bathroom. Right now is not the time to worry about codes.
Yeah, especially if you live out there. I mean, that's the reason you live out there. You want to build your house the way you want to build it. You're in the middle nowhere. Sean Hendricks, thank you so much for all you do. Everybody, you can follow Sean on Twitter, and you'll be able to find ways to help there because they certainly need the help. Sean, thank you for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Okay, coming up next, yesterday, President-elect Donald Trump made one of his biggest and most controversial appointments, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to be his Health and Human Services Secretary. It was expected, but it came with no less controversy and criticism. But today, this was interesting. A TV star and one-time candidate for senator came out with an overwhelming endorsement for Kennedy. Who was it, and what has been the reaction? And there's been a lot. That's coming up next. All right, so yesterday, President-elect Donald Trump made an expected but no less controversial announcement. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be his Secretary of Health and Human Services. There were all sorts of rumors and speculation about this. Most knew this was coming up, but the critics came out. They were fast and furious today. But Kennedy did get a big endorsement from a big-time doctor, Dr. Oz himself. Take a look at this.
The nomination of RFK Jr. for Health and Human Services will help our nation address the illness industrial complex that holds our health hostage. Over the past decade, thousands of federally funded health researchers have reported financial conflicts of interest. We need better researched lifestyle advice from unbiased scientists, and RFK Jr. could help.
So was Dr. Oz right to give such a ringing endorsement of Kennedy, who is not a doctor, by the way, nor has he run any health and services department before? I want to bring in the former director of the CDC, Dr. Robert Redfield. Dr. Redfield, it's always nice to see you. You were not exactly friends with RFK Jr. for a long time, but you have changed your tune. Tell us about why.
Well, I think RFK is really passionate about trying to make America healthy again. We have unfortunately evolved over the last 20 years into a very sick nation from when his uncle was president. We're looking now from 3% obesity rates now anywhere from 40 to maybe to be as high as 60, 70% obesity rates. Chronic disease is really taking over our nation. And Kennedy's committed and passionately to help make America healthy again, and I'm committed to helping them.
Some people are nervous. One of the big things I keep hearing is he doesn't believe in science. He doesn't listen to science. You are obviously a man of science, and you ran the CDC. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, it's just not true. Kennedy respects science. He understands science. Some people feel that if you question science and ask for some validation or proof, that somehow makes you anti-science. The truth is the opposite. That's what science is all about dialogue, questioning, debate. So Kennedy is really actually more science-oriented than a lot of his critics that say he's not in favor of science.
During the pandemic, I remember, Dr. Redfield, you were very open about saying that the vaccine was going to be a game changer. It was an important gift to science is one thing that you said. But I want to play you a little montage of what RFK has said about vaccines. Take a listen.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. And for every one life they save from COVID, they're killing 4 people from the vaccine. It confirms that this is the deadliest vaccine ever made.
Do you think we should be worried at all, like if he gets confirmed, that he could sort of start a real no vaccine culture and put that into public policy?
No, Brian, I don't think that. I mean, I'm probably one of the biggest advocates for vaccine. You mentioned that when I was CDC director, I would say that I think vaccines are the greatest gift of science to modern medicine, and I still believe that. Kennedy's not anti-vaccine. What Kennedy is about is transparency about vaccine, honest discussion about vaccines, asking for the data to show that these vaccines are safe and they're efficacious. And the mere question of asking, what's the data for safety? Many of his detractors say, okay, well, you're anti-vax. No, just show me the safety data. Show me the efficacy data. I have high confidence that Kennedy is going to be a strong supporter of transparency on vaccines, and where the vaccine data shows that they're efficacious and a benefit to the American public, he will promote them.
I mean, for everybody who kind of is freaking out about RFK Jr., I guess I just think to myself, I mean, we're not in a very good place right now, health-wise. At least it doesn't feel like it. I mean, so many Americans are obese. There's weird stuff that goes on with the pharmaceutical companies and how expensive things are. I mean, should people just be more open-minded? We probably need some serious changes, right?
Yeah, I think, Brian, we need transformational change. Right now, we've created, over the last 20, 30 years, we've developed a disease system. We need to make a health system. And when Kennedy says he wants to help make America healthy again, when I was CDC director, one of the challenges was we lost about 1.2 million people died of COVID. Other countries like Taiwan lost less than 10,000 people. Why did we lose so many people? We lost so many people because
our people are unhealthy.
We're a sick nation. And Kennedy... Kennedy is really committed to making us healthy again. And I do agree with you. We should all get behind him. Making a healthy America is not a partisan issue. We ought to get behind him and help him make us healthy again.
Let's see how it goes. I mean, at least be open-minded. All right, Dr. Redfield, thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on. When we come back, where's Chris tonight? You're going to want to know the answer to that. That's next. All right, there's Dusty. Dusty, this has been one of your most watched weeks ever. Congratulations. Hopefully it doesn't tank because I'm filling in. But where's Chris?
So
where's Chris tonight?
It is one of, I think, if maybe the most watched week ever. But he had to leave us, unfortunately. But he's off with Bill Maher tonight doing their final season finale episode. So they got